My name is Harper Ellison. I'm 31, and last week my parents cut me from Thanksgiving with one sentence I never imagined hearing. Mom's voice was cold and overly controlled, like she'd rehearsed every word before dialing my number. "Your sister wants her boyfriend to make a good first impression," she said, "and having you there would make her look bad." I stood in the hallway of the IT lab after a 14-hour shift staring at my phone as if it suddenly weighed 10 pounds. For a moment I thought I misheard her, but she repeated it slower, like she was explaining something obvious to someone who had always been an inconvenience. "You understand, right? It's for Madison's image." Image. That word had followed me my entire life, a shadow I never chose. I didn't argue. I didn't ask for clarity. I just said, "Okay," and hung up, because fighting them never meant anything, and deep down, I knew the pattern I was always expected to dim so my sister could shine. I honestly believed that being uninvited was the final hit, that the humiliation would end there. But the next morning before the sun came up, someone started pounding on my apartment door, sharp, angry, relentless. I opened it, still half asleep, and saw all of them crowded in the hallway, faces tight with fury, like I had done something disastrous overnight. They didn't even give me a chance to breathe before the accusations started. And then, before I could say a word, her boyfriend stepped forward and said something that changed everything. "If you've ever felt pushed aside by your own family, stay with me. This story goes somewhere you won't expect. And if you're new here, hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next." A sharp breath escaped me as I tightened my grip on the door, steadying myself before facing what waited outside. Mom stood front and center, arms folded like she was holding the entire hallway hostage. Dad hovered behind her with that familiar expression of disappointment he wore like a uniform, and Madison looked furious enough to snap the air in half. Mom didn't even greet me. "So you've decided to run your mouth again," she said, her tone clipped and icy. "Your grandmother called us at 6 this morning asking what happened. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?" I blinked, taken aback by the speed of the attack, but Mom didn't leave room for a response. "You never think," she went on. "You just create chaos and expect us to clean it up." Madison took a step forward, eyes blazing. "You really made us look ridiculous," she snapped. "Grandma thought we abandoned you on a holiday. Do you know how awful that makes us look?" Dad exhaled loudly, like my existence was an inconvenience he had tolerated long enough. "This is exactly why we can't trust you with anything," he said. "Every time we try to maintain some order, you twist it." Mom shot me a tight smile that wasn't a smile at all. "Con luon la moi tu roi tung len," she muttered, slipping into Vietnamese the way she did whenever she wanted to land a deeper cut. Always. I leaned against the doorframe to ground myself, keeping my voice level. "I haven't told anyone anything." Dad raised a finger at me, the gesture sharp and corrective. "Your grandmother didn't make up a full story at dawn. Someone put it in her head, and it certainly wasn't us." Madison made a scoffing noise. "You probably said something dramatic to get attention. You always need attention." My patience thinned. I didn't say anything to anyone, but they weren't listening. They never did. Dad stepped even closer, lowering his voice as if about to give orders. "Enough. There are things you need to handle today. The living room camera hasn't been working for 2 weeks, and your mother needs it fixed before guests arrive on Sunday." Mom nodded sharply, picking up the list like they had rehearsed this on the drive over. "And the router keeps shutting off." "I can't work under those conditions, Harper. You'll reset everything today." Madison pointed a manicured finger at me, her voice rising. "I have an event coming up, and I need the lighting equipment calibrated. You know how important this is for my career. You'll come over and fix it," Dad added. "And the internet bill needs to be paid. We can't have disruptions during the holiday." I stared at the three of them, stunned that after dragging themselves here before sunrise to tear into me, they were now handing out tasks like I was on their payroll. Mom tilted her chin. "We expect you to come now. We don't have all day." And that was the moment I realized they hadn't arrived to talk. They had arrived expecting service. A faint shuffle from the hallway signaled someone else approaching, and a moment later a tall man stepped into view behind my parents. His posture was careful, like he was unsure whether to interrupt, yet Madison immediately straightened as if her entire reputation rested on this exact entrance. "This is Ethan Carter," she announced, pushing a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "My boyfriend. He's a pilot. He's disciplined. He's organized. And he's the kind of person people actually admire." Her emphasis on admire hung in the air like a dart aimed directly at me. Ethan gave a polite nod and shifted his attention toward the tense atmosphere. He hadn't said a word yet, but his eyes scanned from my parents to Madison, then finally to me, lingering a moment longer than expected. Mom quickly filled the silence. "We wanted Ethan to understand the situation. Your behavior this morning made us look irresponsible, and that isn't fair to Madison." Madison folded her arms proudly. "Exactly. I don't want him thinking our family is messy." I almost laughed at the irony, but the moment Ethan opened his mouth, Madison cut him off and launched into a rehearsed brag. "Ethan is perfect," she said sharply. "He's focused, he's stable, and he knows what it means to build a respectable life. Not like whatever this is." Her eyes swept over me like I was a stain she hoped the hallway lighting would hide. Ethan looked uncomfortable at her tone, his brows pinching slightly. "Madison," he murmured, "that's not." But he didn't finish the sentence. Instead, his gaze drifted back to me, studying my face with a flicker of recognition that wasn't judgmental at all. "Wait," he said slowly, his tone shifting. "Harper Ellison." Madison's smile froze instantly. "Why do you know her name?" she demanded. Ethan ignored her and took a step closer, speaking directly to me. "Do you volunteer at the makerspace downtown?" The hallway fell silent. My parents stared at him like he had started speaking another language. I nodded cautiously. "Sometimes?" Ethan's expression brightened with genuine surprise. "You're the one who helped launch the Home Tech Aid program, aren't you? The one that teaches older residents how to use refurbished devices?" The shock that hit my family was almost physical. Madison blinked rapidly, her confidence slipping. "What are you talking about?" she snapped. "Harper doesn't run programs. She barely leaves her apartment." Ethan shook his head slowly. "No. I've seen her name posted in the community board. People praised her for helping them with their devices, especially seniors who can't afford repairs." He glanced at me again, this time with something close to respect. My parents looked utterly blindsided. Mom's lips parted like she couldn't form a sentence. Dad stepped back slightly, the first crack in his practiced authority. Madison, however, reacted like the ground beneath her had tilted. "You must be mistaken," she insisted, her voice rising. "Harper doesn't do anything like that. She's not capable of organizing community programs." Ethan frowned, confused by her insistence. "I'm not mistaken. I attended one of the sessions during my break. I remember seeing her picture on the volunteer wall." I felt every pair of eyes on me, but Ethan's was the only one that didn't carry accusation. For once, someone standing beside Madison saw me as something other than a burden. Madison's face flushed with fury as she struggled to regain control. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "Ethan, don't get pulled into her stories. She always makes everything bigger than it is." Ethan turned toward me again, ignoring her rising panic. "Harper," he said, his voice steady, "why didn't you tell them what you actually do for the community?" And that single question hit my family like a thrown switch, sending all their composure crashing down at once. A small pause settled between us as everyone tried to make sense of Ethan's question, and in that thin break, Mom suddenly shifted her tone like flipping a switch. "Anyway," she said briskly, "since we're all here, we need to handle a few things today." Dad nodded, immediately relieved to return to familiar ground. "Harper, the camera system at the house hasn't worked for weeks. Your mother needs it fixed before Thursday," Mom added. "And the doorbell monitor keeps disconnecting." I can't live like that. You'll reset everything when we get back. Madison stepped in with forced urgency. Also, I need help with the equipment for my winter showcase. The lighting is malfunctioning, and the tech team I hired is completely unreliable. If you come this afternoon, you can recalibrate everything. Dad crossed his arms, his voice firm. And the internet bill needs to be taken care of. It's backed up for 3 months. Just pay it and we'll sort it out later. I stared at them, stunned that the conversation had slid so naturally into demands. Not questions, not requests, orders, like always. Mom looked at me expectantly. We drove all the way here because these issues can't wait. Madison chimed in sharply. And my event is extremely important. You know how much pressure I'm under. If I look unprepared, it affects my whole image. Dad added a final push. We're family, Harper. Family solves problems for each other. The words hit me with a familiarity that made my stomach twist. This was the real reason they came, not the misunderstanding with Grandma, not Thanksgiving, not concern, not anything resembling care. They needed labor money and someone to blame if things went wrong. Ethan watched the exchange in silence, confusion tightening his expression as he looked between them. Wait, he said cautiously. She's supposed to fix all of that today? Mom answered immediately. Of course. She handles these things. She always does. Dad nodded in agreement. She's good with technical stuff. It's her responsibility. Ethan frowned. Responsibility says who. Madison rolled her eyes. This is how our family works. Harper helps. That's her role. It's not complicated. I felt something inside me shift, not violently but heavily, like a weight finally sliding into place. I looked at their faces, each of them waiting for my compliance as if it were the natural order of things. Mom stepped closer. We don't have time for attitude. Grab your jacket and let's go. Dad's voice turned stern. We expect you to do your part. Madison pressed a hand to her hip. Harper, stop dragging this out. I need your help more than ever. They genuinely believed this was normal, expected, required. Ethan's confusion deepened into something sharper. You all came here just to assign her chores, he asked quietly. This wasn't about Thanksgiving at all. Mom stiffened. Don't make this dramatic. Family helps family. Dad nodded firmly. Exactly. And she knows what she owes us. That word owes hit me like a cold blade. For years I had lived under it without questioning. Today, with Ethan's eyes on me and the fog finally clearing, something inside me snapped clean. I straightened my back, letting the air fill my lungs fully before releasing it. My voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It stayed steady, calm, anchored. No. It was a single syllable, but it felt like the first true thing I had ever spoken in their presence. A tense breath hung in the doorway as my single word settled over all of them. Mom was the first to react. Her eyes widened and her hand flew to her chest like I had struck her. How could you say that to your own mother? She cried, her voice trembling as if she were the one being wronged. Dad stepped forward, immediately his tone snapping like a whip. Unbelievable. After everything we've done for you, this is how you speak to us. You've become ungrateful. Madison let out a disbelieving laugh and flicked her hair over her shoulder. Of course she's saying no. She doesn't exactly have anything going on. It's not like she has a career to lose or something important to do. Her smirk sharpened. Honestly, Harper, you should be glad anyone needs you at all. Ethan's head snapped toward her, stunned by how casually cruel she sounded. Madison, he said firmly, what is wrong with you? She spun toward him. I'm telling the truth. She's always been like this, dramatic, difficult, stubborn. She barely has anything in her life, and she still refuses to help us. She waved at me dismissively. She lives in this tiny place and acts like she's better than everyone. I clenched my jaw but kept my voice steady. I said no. Dad pointed at me again, louder this time. You don't say no to your family. His voice rose with every word. "We raised you, we fed you, we gave you a place in this world. You owe us respect." Mom's voice overlapped his shaking with manufactured distress. "I can't believe my own daughter would talk to me like this. I must have been a terrible mother for you to treat me this way." Madison scoffed again. "She's being ridiculous. It's always the same. She acts like she's some martyr when she's barely scraping by. She should be grateful we even came here." Ethan frowned deeply, the shock on his face shifting into something heavier. "This is not normal," he said quietly, almost to himself. "You're talking to her like she's an appliance you own," Dad barked. "Stay out of this, Ethan. This is a family matter." Ethan didn't back down. "Then maybe your family has a problem." Mom gasped. "Excuse me." He gestured toward me. "You've been throwing demands at her since the moment I walked up. Not one of you asked how she is, or what she wants." Madison's voice cracked with anger. "Why are you defending her?" "Because she hasn't done anything wrong," he said flatly. "You just don't like being told no." The hallway thickened with tension. My pulse steadied as something inside me clicked into alignment. I stepped back slightly, placing my hand on the edge of my door. Dad glared at me. "Harper, you're coming with us. We're not leaving until you agree." Mom added sharply. "You don't shut the door on your parents," Madison hissed. "Don't even think about it." Ethan turned toward me, his expression calm, supportive, ready. And for the first time in my life, I felt the weight of a different choice, a boundary I had never allowed myself to draw. My voice stayed level. "You're not coming in, and you're not ordering me around anymore." Mom sputtered. "You can't keep us out." "Watch me," I said. And before any of them could say another word, I closed the door, letting the latch click into place, a sound that felt like a line finally drawn in solid ink. By early evening, the makerspace buzzed with its usual Thursday energy as I walked into the main workshop for Community Tech Night. The room felt alive with quiet excitement, and for the first time all day, my shoulders loosened. Mrs. Hale, my 76-year-old neighbor with sharp wit and a tablet she adored, waved me over the moment she spotted me. "Harper, dear, my photos disappeared again. I swear the thing hides from me on purpose." I smiled and gently took the device. Riley, a high school junior with a talent for coding faster than he spoke, hurried over next. "Harper, I finished the accessibility app update. Can you check if I broke anything?" Behind him came Marcus, a soft-spoken warehouse worker who once told me learning to use refurbished tech helped him apply for better jobs. He lifted a small laptop. "It's running slow again. I think it's pretending to be tired." Their presence wrapped around me like a warm current, steady and grounding. Here, I wasn't the family handyman or the backup plan or the person expected to fix everything without a thank you. I was just Harper, someone who helped because she wanted to, not because she owed it. As I moved between tables, Ethan stepped through the door, hands tucked in his jacket pockets. He offered a quiet nod as if asking permission to join. "Thought I'd come by," he said. "You mentioned this group and I wanted to see it for myself." Riley looked up. "Are you the pilot guy?" Ethan laughed softly. "That's me." Marcus clapped him on the back. "Harper's one of the best people here. If you're with her, you're in good hands." The comment caught me off guard. No one in my family had ever spoken of me with that kind of confidence. Ethan glanced at me with a small, honest smile. "Yeah," he said quietly, "I'm starting to see that." Mrs. Hale chimed in, pointing her stylus at him. "If you want to be helpful, young man, grab that charger." "My tablet is hungrier than I am." He immediately obeyed, earning a proud nod from her. For a brief stretch of time, everything felt settled. Riley tested his code. Marcus asked me about job listings. Mrs. Hale lectured Ethan on using a coaster, and I felt something loosen inside my chest, a space opening up where belonging could finally breathe. Community, laughter, purpose. A life that was mine. As I finished adjusting a setting on Marcus's laptop, Ethan leaned closer. "You look happier here," he said gently. "Like yourself." I didn't realize how much that meant until the words landed. "I am," I admitted. Maybe for the first time. He nodded slowly, understanding more than I expected. Before I could say more, a violent jolt rattled the meeting room door, slamming it against its hinges. The entire room froze. Mrs. Hale gasped. Riley jumped back. Marcus straightened instinctively. Another jolt came harder this time, followed by a familiar voice, slicing through the thin crack of the frame. "Harper, open this door right now." My stomach dropped. My family had found me. The room went still for a breath as the door slammed open and my family stormed into the workshop, their voices hitting me before their faces fully appeared. Dad pointed at me immediately, rage tightening every syllable. "You embarrassed us in front of half the family, Harper. Do you have any idea what people are saying about us now?" Mom stepped beside him, clutching her purse like a prop in a practiced performance. "We had to explain ourselves all day. All because you're determined to make us look like terrible parents." Madison moved forward with sharp steps, her glare locked on me like a spotlight. "You're ruining my life," she snapped. "Ethan barely talks to me because of you. You turned him against me." Ethan, who had been helping Riley adjust a monitor, straightened. "Madison, I made my own decisions," he said calmly, but she ignored him. Dad jabbed a finger toward me again. "If you want to convince us you're not the problem, then show us. Prove you're not dragging this family down." Mom nodded eagerly, her voice thick with accusation. "Yes. Show us you're responsible. Show us you're not creating chaos everywhere you go." That familiar sting hit my chest, but instead of shrinking, I walked to the table behind me where my backpack sat. I unzipped it, pulled out a thick folder, a navy blue plastic binder, nothing dramatic, and set it on the nearest workbench. The sound echoed through the quiet room. "You want proof," I said. "Fine." Madison scoffed loudly. "What is that supposed to be?" "Your excuses." I opened the folder, revealing pages neatly stacked and clipped. "These are the things I've covered for you for the past 7 years. Dad's brows pulled together. "What are you talking about?" I held up the first set of papers: repair invoices, the roof leak in 2017, the kitchen wiring in 2018, the water heater replacement the year after. I paid every one of these. Mom shook her head in disbelief. "No, that's not possible," but I placed the next stack on the table. "The overdue internet bills I paid 6 times, the phone plan renewals, the penalties you didn't want to deal with." Madison's mouth tightened as I laid out the next documents. "The loan you took under your name and asked me to temporarily handle because it was affecting your credit. I paid that too." Her voice cracked. "You said you didn't mind." "I did mind," I answered calmly, "but you never listened long enough to hear it." I turned another page, revealing a printed spreadsheet. "Every transfer I made to help you prepare for your career workshops, makeup courses, outfit rentals, last-minute travel bookings." Dad's face paled. "You kept track of all this?" "No," I said, meeting his eyes. "I kept you afloat. You just never noticed." Behind them, Ethan took a slow breath, his expression troubled. "This is a lot," he murmured, scanning the pages. "This isn't someone who's irresponsible. This is someone who's been carrying all of you." Mom's voice wavered. "Harper, why would you keep all this?" Riley whispered to Marcus. "She did all that." Marcus nodded with quiet respect. "Yeah, she helps everyone." The weight of silence pressed in. Madison finally broke it, her tone brittle. "You're making this up. You're doing this to ruin me in front of Ethan." Ethan stepped forward. "Madison, stop. This is real, and it shows exactly who's been doing the work in your family." Her face crumpled, the first crack in her perfect image. "You're choosing her over me," she whispered. Ethan didn't answer. The silence was enough. Mom's chest rose and fell rapidly. Harper. You could have told us? I tried, I said softly. You just didn't want to hear anything that didn't fit the story you built. Dad shook his head, refusing to accept it. So what now? You're throwing all this in our face. I closed the folder with a steady hand. No, I said. I'm ending it. All eyes locked on me. I looked at each of them. Dad's anger, Mom's disbelief, Madison's unraveling pride, and spoke the final line without wavering. I'm done being your solution. From this moment on, you fix your own mess. Weeks later, the distance I had created became a clean line carved through my life, and I kept it that way without hesitation. I blocked every number, removed every email, and shut every door they used to walk through, and for the first time, nothing in me argued against it. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was peaceful. Without my support propping them up, things shifted quickly. Mom and Dad struggled the moment the bills they used to hand off to me stopped disappearing. Their savings thinned out, and the financial cushions they relied on evaporated. Within a month, they sold their car, the one they used to boast about, and moved into a small one-bedroom apartment across town. I heard about it from an aunt who called to ask what had happened, and even she admitted quietly that no one was taking their side anymore once the truth surfaced. Madison's consequences came just as swiftly. Her company postponed her promotion after a client flagged concerns about her professional conduct, which aligned suspiciously well with the meltdown she had at the makerspace. The image she curated so carefully unraveled thread by thread. Ethan ended things with her a week later, citing different values, though I suspected he had finally seen more than just a few cracks. As for me, my world began expanding in ways I hadn't planned, but welcomed fully. I returned to my projects with clearer focus, and I launched a free weekly tech class for seniors and teens, something I had dreamed of, but never had the emotional space for while juggling my family's demands. Mrs. Hale showed up to every session with cookies. Riley brought new code ideas that often outpaced mine. Marcus volunteered to help set up equipment. And Ethan, who remained respectful of my boundaries, stopped by occasionally to offer tools or look over the curriculum. There was no pressure, no expectation, just quiet support that didn't ask for repayment. For the first time, I realized how wide my life could be when it wasn't narrowed by guilt. I furnished my apartment, slowly choosing things that felt like mine. I took long walks after work. I breathed without carrying someone else's panic in my chest. I didn't check on my family. I didn't wonder if they were coping. The responsibility was never mine, and it no longer felt like a missing piece. Cutting them off wasn't a dramatic explosion, it was a necessary correction. People talk a lot about forgiveness, but sometimes the most honest version of it is stepping away, so the damage can't continue. My family taught me that boundaries aren't walls, they're doors I get to keep locked when needed. And rebuilding my life without them has been the clearest proof that I never owed my peace to anyone who made a habit of breaking it.